An interesting topic, what discussion in modern day practice. So I have no conflict of interest and no disclosures. We all know that there is an increasing frequency of uterine stone disease globally. It was noted that over the last 10-year period, about 127% increase in the number of ureteroscopic stone treatments were recorded. Currently, about 61% of high volume urologists use flexible ureteroscopy to deal with upper tract stones and large urinary stones more than 2 centimeters. This is the data from the NHS, which also shows a parallel increase, progressive rise in the ureteroscopy procedures as we go ahead over the last 15 years. Let's look at the evolution of ureteroscope. So the first ureteroscope in the modern form was in 1987. It's been 40 years, close to 40 years then. And the first flexible digital scope came in vogue in 2006. And then the first single-use flexible ureteroscope was mentioned in 2011. And since then, the journey with flexible ureteroscopes, single-use, continues with newer and newer models coming. This is a cartoon which shows the different types of reusable flexible ureteroscopes, which we are more familiar with over the last 20 years, and their designs. And we should understand that the progress is towards smaller and more sophisticated equipment, especially the progression with newer technologies is more rapid in the last decade. So what are the problems with the reusable scopes? The high cost related to ureteroscope acquisition, the maintenance, processing, sterilization, repairs. So when we come to single-use flexible ureteroscopes, we have a few questions. Is there a difference in the image characteristics? Is there a difference in deflection, irrigation flow? Are the stone-free rates and complication rates different from the single-use and reusable scopes? Is the operative time different? Does surgeon experience matter? Is there a limit of usage of time for the single-use scopes? And are these scopes cost-effective? If not, what model can we use to help our institution procure them? There was a survey done in 2019, and about 114 responders, most of them performing ureteroscopies, and they mentioned that disposable scopes were only used by 40% of the endourologists at that time, and 3/4 of them were only using it for challenging cases. These are a few literature studies which show that single-use flexible ureteroscope has almost similar efficacy for different stones, upper tract, large stones, more than 20 millimeter stones, as compared to the reusable ones. But when it comes to economics, it is definitely more expensive, and then the institution should choose based on their financial situation, the number of procedures they perform, the volume of patient stone, surgeon's experience, and local annual maintenance contracts. So it was seen that as the number of procedures increased, the reusable scopes were more cost effective, and this was shown in all the observations here. And so although the disposable and the reusable are comparable in performance, the reusable scopes seems to be more cost effective in high volume centers, because as the number of procedures go up, the reusable scopes are more costly. Let's look at the key players in single-use flexible ureteroscopes. So this is a list of the current flexible ureteroscopes, and most of them are manufactured in China. This is the first one, which I would like to mention, is the Pusin or the U-scope, and they have the features of dual button, self-locking, lure lock, lightweight, torque ratio of true 1:1, 3.6 French working channel, a 270-degree deflection up and down, and a passive deflection for ease of navigation. This is another scope, which is the new Flix by the new scope USA, 9 French, superior image quality, and 3.6 French working channel, 280-degree tip deflection in dual directions, and ergonomic handling. This is the Boston Scientific LithoView, which many of us are familiar with. It has a tip diameter of 9.5 French, working channel of 3.6 French, deflection up and down 270 degrees, and LED technology. They have come up with a newer innovation, which is the empowered device, which can be fitted to the scope, and it eliminates the need to coordinate with an assistant during stone retrieval. It helps in better ergonomics, and the surgeon can himself use the baskets to retrieve stones. stones after laser fragmentation. And this is compatible with all the Boston Scientific baskets, which are the Zero Tape, the Dakota, the Escape, and the Graspit. Another innovation from the LithoView scope is measure or facility for measuring the infrared pressure monitoring while the scope is being used. Shaogang, the other scope, which has a tip diameter of 8 French and a working channel of 4.2, deflection of 270, is unilateral image technology, CMOS, and illumination of LED. So this is another type of scope called the Innovex or EU scope. They have two generations, generation 1 in 2017 and the second generation came up recently with claiming a clearer and a sharp image. So they have 275-degree maneuverability and high quality images. The newer generation claims better vision and better maneuverability, and they are also manufacturing newer models, which has Model D and Model E as for the new generation scope. To note that the same processor cannot be used for the generation 1 and generation 2. This is also important while procuring this type of scopes. Another scope, Indovasive from Biorad Medicis, auto brightness control, auto white balance, field of view is 110 degrees, line of vision 0, depth is 2 to 50, and we have a fiber elimination. Here the diameter is 7.5 French and the tip deflection is 270 up and down. The working channel is about 3.3 French. Another scope called V-scope or Zebra scope from the OTU Medical. They have 4 models for standard deflection model for right and left-handed, reverse deflection model for right and left-handed surgeon. And they have a distal tip diameter of 7.4 with an insertion tube outer diameter of 8.6, working channel of 3.6. Another thing with them is a bullet design of the tip, which they claim for easy insertion. A newer scope from Seplu, this is called the L scope, and they have a very good deflection of 285 degrees with greater illumination and perfect control. And this is of note that they're the smallest currently what we can get is 7.2 French is the distal end diameter, which is especially important with shorter ureters and very tight ureters. A newer scope which has come from Huge Mid company called H scope, and they also claim very good vision, 160K resolution, dual button self-locker, true 1:1, flexible sheet, 285-degree deflection is what they are claiming. Another new scope, which is from Station, it's called UR1331. The key advantages are multifunction buttons and the left-right rotation, where it helps with the surgeon in rotating inside the pelvis, slim design, and the left-right rotation is about 120 degrees on either side, which helps in the ergonomics. And these are the description for them. The 9.5 French, working channel of 3.6, 275 degree up and down, and rotation as we discussed. So let's compare them and see what which is better. Do we have any idea? So this was for the first comparison between LithoView and the UR-FV and FlexXC. This is a comparison showed us that LithoView is analogous to the reusable scopes in regard to the technical metrics. But depending on the purchase cost, it may also represent a cost-saving model. Particularly, the disposable scope was useful for stag-on stones, lower pole, mid-pole stones. Another comparison between LithoView, U-scope, Neoflex, and Shaogang. It was seen that the Shaogang had the outer diameter of 8 French, was smaller, and the working channel was the biggest, which is 4.2 French. However, they have a optical fiber and a unilateral deflection instead of the others, which have a dual deflection, which is advantage. This is another comparison between the 4 scopes, and here a standard line of testing was done with laser fiber, retrieval basket, guide wires, biopsy process, different types of insertions. And this is the scope tips at the end. These are the connected types of these scopes. And also it was noted that Neoflex was the lightest scope amongst this, including the cable. And when we went into deflection testing, what was seen is the single-use flexible ureteroscopes deflecting better than the reusable ones. The irrespective of deflection, the irrigation flow was also better. However, the reusable ones had a better vision characteristic than the single-use ones. So Neoflex had the best one in terms of deflection in this, and this table just says that in deflection, the Neoflex was the best one amongst the single-use ones. Shaogang was the worst one. Irrigation flow was best in Shaogang because they have a wider inner tube channel diameter. Field of view was best with lithoview. The resolution was worst with Shaogang and U-scope, and image distortion was better with lithoview one. And what was noted that PTFE guide wire had the highest impact on deflection of all the flexibles, and 200 micrometer laser fiber least deflection impact on the single-use ones, whereas the 1.5 French basket was at the least deflection impairment on the reusable ones. Depth of field and color reproducibility was almost similar for all uniforms. This is the point of exit of instruments, which is also important in the all scopes, and you can see that it's very important. As from this paper also we see that the position of the working channel is especially important when we are considering lower pole stones. This is another description or comparison between the lithoview U-scope, V-scope, and U-scope, which was presented in the World Congress Endourology 2019. The V-scope here was the lightest and the best, the smallest dimensions. The working channel at 9 o'clock, the irrigation with laser and basket was the best in terms of in comparison to the others. This is another comparison between the U-scope 9.5, 7.5 lithoview and endoscope. So here also what we saw that the color representation was equivalent for endoscope and lithoview, but better than the other two of U-scope 7.5 and 9. Image resolution was comparable. Beyond 10 millimeter luminosity of lithoview was the highest, and the U-scope was the lowest. Deflection loss was minimum with the endoscope, maximum was with U-scope, and irrigation fluid flow was comparable in all scopes. This is again a comparison between the lithoview endoscope and the U-scopes, and the deflection here with the endoscope had the maximum deflection and U-scope had the maximum loss of deflection. The irrigation flow in this comparison shows with empty working channel all had comparable irrigation flow. Similarly, in 200 micrometer basket laser or basket, the insertion, the irrigation flow was also compared. Comparison between the Ceplu versus the other ones. This is independent data by the manufacturer, and this Ceplu is the L scope is the smallest one currently, which is there, which is 7.2 French with a good pixel 1675 and a double deflection. They had a limited feedback from endourologists at Netherlands, which was showing that they have a better image quality than the U-scope from Bussen. And then this comparison from the A-scope, these are all new scopes, so these are from the manufacturer, and these comparisons show that the A-scope had a good vision, 3.6 French working channel, 285-degree dual deflection. The A-scope comes in two varieties. This is the 7.5 French. Another big advantage is unlimited work hours compared to the others, where there is a limitation of the work hours. So this is the 9 French, and this is the 7.5 French from A-scope, almost the similar benefits with the LED light and the smaller shaft, and again unlimited usage. Now, we know the scopes are expensive, the single-use ones, but how we can reduce the financial impact. It is suggested by this study that the financial impact can be reduced by negotiating the purchase price, developing outpatient activity, reducing production costs for ureteroscopy procedures. One important thing I must mention that the single-use ureteroscopes generate slightly less harmful emissions, and this is also relevant in present time. So my take-home messages here are that disposable devices are already a reality and will progressively become standard as manufacturing price falls. Newer versions are slimmer, lightweight, better image characteristics, better deflection, and offer unlimited usage hours. However, the choice will depend on individual preferences. Thank you for your time.